The following is a presentation of the LIV Sports Media Network.
And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the HighLowSports podcast. We appreciate you all if you're joining us here on this Wednesday evening, or if you're checking us out later on in the week on one of your favorite podcast apps. It is NBA Finals Game 3 day as well, too. So we'll be recording live right as the game is going on as well, too. So if you see Kelcey randomly jump up out of his chair, you know somebody probably got dunked on or someone hit a half-court three at some point. But speaking of Kelcey, is DJ, joined as always by my co-host, Kelcey. Kelcey, we will talk a little NBA today, but we're also going to talk a little bit of football and a little bit on the mat. We're going to go all over the place today.
Yeah, you know, it's a good thing. I don't know if I can do any jumping right now. Just got out of the hospital. I don't know if they're okay with that yet. I don't know if I've been cleared to do any jumping. Barely got cleared to go back to work, so I don't even know if my heart's ready to take on the NBA Finals at this point in time. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, if you see me just like pass out during the middle of this, just push me over. It'll be okay. I'll figure it out. It's exciting. It's a lot of sports, and let's not forget NHL Finals going on, NHL Stanley Cup going on as well. But you know, honestly, both of us not the biggest hockey fans, so we're not going to talk about that on the show. But it is happening just for everybody else out there.
And the Knights, speaking of which, we'll just touch on that really quick. The Knights are looking pretty good, especially off that dominant Game 2 as well, too. So I'm not saying it'll be a sweep, but I'm going to put the money on the Knights right now.
I mean, Vegas team, home. You know what they say about the house always wins. So like home team in Vegas, hard to beat them there.
Absolutely, definitely a tough one there. But there's a lot to talk about today, so we'll go and get right into it. That'll take us right into the tip-off. And the tip-off, of course, brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. Use code BellyUpSports for $20 off your first order there. Get some nice tickets to whether it's your favorite game, your favorite team, your favorite concert, whatever you need to go wherever you want to go, check out SeatGeek. And speaking of some interesting things going on in the NBA, looks like the point god himself, CP3, might be on the move. Him and his representation speaking with the Suns ownership about potential trade, potential extension, a potential release him and then re-sign him, or anything in between as well. So right now, when I look at it, there are rumors he does want to stay. He's close with Devin Booker, wants to get a chance to play with those guys as well, too. Missed the playoff run, obviously, against the Nuggets with that groin injury, but kind of surprising to see. I know he's way up there in age, but kind of surprising to see that there's a chance he might want to leave on top of it as well, too, depending on what the conversations are like.
Yeah, it's wild. Actually, even Chris Haynes coming out and saying that the Suns absolutely plan on waiving a minimal by the June 20th deadline there. It's wild. I got to say, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you look at it and like CP3's kind of bounced around a few teams here since his early days in New Orleans, but it's still weird for me to even consider the fact that CP3 is no longer going to be a Sun. It feels like that was a good fit for him right now, a good fit for the end of his career, kind of that tail-end type of situation. Kind of similar to what we saw with, you know, Jason Kidd for the most part here. He kind of went down to Phoenix and then winded down his career. Obviously, he ended up on two more teams before the end of his career, but that's just because he didn't know when to say when. And then, you know, still thought he was playing basketball for the Bucks as a head coach, but I digress. But no, it does feel like CP3 might need to take a page out of any other point guard's book not named Jason Kidd and learn when is enough, and maybe this is the time to kind of step back from it maybe.
Absolutely. And he has all the intangibles, still a great leader, a great dribbler, still a great passer, still has a good enough shot for the most part. Just staying healthy has been such a plague for him, especially the last 5 years. And when you need him most, that's when it gets worrisome. Remember, Houston up 3-2 against the Warriors. He goes down when he was with Houston. This last year, they needed him against the Nuggets, went down. So I can see from both sides too, and for him at this point too, you want to play for a winner, but at the same time, that Suns team is going to be very interesting next year. And then Frank Vogel coming in as the coach, a more defensive-oriented guy, he's gonna need CP3 to sit in that chair, and I don't know if he can do that at almost 40 years of age right now, the same way they need him to. So a lot of dynamic going on. That's something we'll definitely keep an eye out for. But if he does hypothetically get moved, do you think there's a good fit for him, a better fit, or somewhere you'd like him to go? Man,
Detroit would love him, and I say that obviously knowing Detroit's history with famous point guards, especially wearing the number 3. Although he didn't wear number 3 there, I don't believe Chauncey. Chauncey wore. No, he wore 1 in Detroit. But still, I still stand by. I think Detroit would enjoy seeing Chris Paul there. Beyond that, you look around. There's not really any team that needs a point-heavy type of guard right now. That's that big. Maybe you know. You have Cole Anthony down in Orlando, maybe take the pressure off Cole Anthony and allow him to take over. But then you also have Jalen Suggs, who will be fully healthy next year. So Do you really take that away from Jalen Suggs? I don't think so. There's not really, to me, a good landing spot without just being like pushing somebody out. Like there's too many guards in Charlotte for that to be the case. It's too many, Jalen Brunson is a fantastic guard up in New York, so that's not going to happen. Brooklyn obviously has everything taken care of. Maybe Boston? That sounds silly to say considering all of his words about Boston in his career. But there, I mean, ironically back in LA with the Clippers. But there's not really, I think outside of Detroit, there's not a perfect landing spot. I think Detroit might actually be the perfect spot for him, though.
Not to mention, to just piggyback off that, he'll be back with his boy Monty Williams there as well too. So you'll get to rejoin forces there. So that could be a good one as well. Maybe somewhere like the Bucks, he could be like a combo guard with Drew Holiday, kick Middleton down to small forward, but even that's a rough one. Depending on what happens with James Harden, you pair him with Tyrese Maxey. It's where all he has to do is throw lobs to Embiid and tell Embiid to get on the block, not shooting mid-range shots like a two guard who's 7'2", 300 pounds. But I think like you mentioned, at this point, it's going to be a little difficult to find the right spot for him. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, which is crazy when we think about Chris Paul as well too, because he's been one of the best players of our lifetime, really. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. There is a lot to keep an eye out for when it comes to where Chris Paul's next landing spot is. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that for sure. But speaking of the NBA Finals as well too, that's where we're going to go and pivot to next. It is now tied up 1-1 after the Heat stole one in Game 2 against Denver as well, and Game 3 about to tip off here within 30 minutes. So we won't get too deep into the woods because we might end up being outdated. But thoughts to you after these two games apiece, heads to Miami 1-1. What are your initial thoughts from those first couple of games?
It's kind of backwards from how I thought it would end up, but it still worked out the same way I thought it would be at this point in time. I thought we'd still see a 1-1 series after two games. I did say that the Heat would take Game 1. I was wrong. The Heat did not take Game 1. They took Game 2. However, you take that poor shooting performance in Game 1 from anybody, and Jimmy only getting 13 points, 14 points, anyway, one of those two.
Yeah.
And you still only lose by less than 15 points, you're feeling pretty good going into Game 2, and that's exactly what you saw with the Heat. Like, they felt pretty good going into Game 2, and they did exactly what I talked about in the NBA show for Belly Up, which is just let Jokic do Jokic things, but cut off everything else. Cut off the rest of the arms of the octopus, let the head try to exist by itself. Because that's kind of what it is. That's kind of how the Nuggets work. They're a giant octopus led by the head that is Jokic. If you cut all the arms off, an octopus can't move. That's just the fact of the matter. It can still eat, but it can't move. So, very deep cut there for that reference. But yeah, it is. I like what I saw from the Heat. I've liked what I've seen from the Nuggets, obviously. But it is going to be interesting to see who can make that first adjustment too. And now you've seen two games. Now can you make the next adjustment? Like, who can make the next adjustment to be successful? Because if you believe Mike Malone is going to do the exact same thing he's been doing all season after seeing that performance in Game 2, you're wrong. Mike Malone's going to come out in Game 3, and there's going to be some kind of adjustment. And you better believe Spoelstra's already got these 7 adjustments he's wanted to put in and going into Game 3 today, getting ready for this. So you know for sure that they're going to be it's a adjustment matchup, and it's whoever can make the right adjustment, not necessarily the best adjustment, but the right adjustment for this game.
The right one at the right time is all they're looking for. And piggybacking off that too, they kind of treat him how they used to treat LeBron in some of those earlier days as well too. It's like, all right, if you're going to score 40, it's going to happen regardless, but we'll be damned if you're going to get 10 assists to go with it. We will not let that happen. And I liked that they not only actually played Kevin Love, but they started him in place of Caleb Martin. They gave Caleb Martin a chance to come off the bench, kind of find a groove that way. And you had a bigger body that you could just throw in front of Jokic. Kevin Love, not known for his defense by any means whatsoever, minus one play against Steph Curry in 2016 of the finals. But other than that, you just put a big body, get him in front of Jokic, and most importantly, get those rebounds, get box out. They're a much smaller team than the Nuggets. You got to find a way to control those boards. And Kevin Love can pass, hit the threes, do all those things you need to. So I liked inserting him in the lineup. Not a Jokic stopper, and nobody is, and I think they kind of contended with that. They're like, you know what? We're gonna make him a little uncomfortable. He's gonna score 40, and he's gonna try and get the assist, but they're just not gonna be there. Our rotation's gonna be on point. So something that we kind of talked about the Lakers should do. We kept preaching them to do that, but they never did. They kept bringing the double team, and he kept kicking it out for shooters. Miami seems to have taken the approach of, you know what? We'll hope he might beat us by himself, but it's going to be a little bit harder than it was when him and Jamal Murray are each getting you 25 and 10 or something, or 35 and 10. So a very good adjustment. We'll see how it works here in Game 3 coming up. So the one other thing I do want to touch on with the NBA Finals before we move forward, the minus Jokic, we take him out of the equation. that finals MVP race is a complete mess. There is nobody else who's standing out. It's Jokic with his freakish stats, Jamal Murray with a good game 1, pretty good game 2. He's averaging, I think right now it's about 20 and 10, so it's still a pretty good series. Jimmy Butler, a pretty good game 2 down the stretch, but game 1 a little shaky. We saw Bam. He's had a pretty good series, 20s in both of them as well, too. A lot more shots. Gabe Vincent's been pretty balanced at about 20 points, but Michael Porter Jr. up game 1, down game 2. Everybody's up and down right now for finals MVP. At this point, let's hypothetically say the Heat win the series. Do you think there's a chance if it continues at this trend, we see Jokic on the losing team get the finals MVP if he averages like 45 and 8 or something ridiculous like that with 12 boards?
Oh man, I've thought about this since pretty much this has been thing. Wasn't it Moses Malone the only player to ever be on the losing side of finals and win the MVP? 3
times, I think. Jerry West, obviously the first one, and I think there was 1 or 2 other ones way back in the day, if I'm not mistaken. But nothing within recent memory that I'm gonna be able to pull out of a hat.
Think about that, Jerry West, the all-time great Jerry West, an all-time famous player in the game, Jerry West, the logo. And you just sit there and think about that. Can Jokic be in that company of that type of level of greatness? And I absolutely think he could. But I do also wonder how much is going to be empty calorie stats. Because if he is on the losing, I'm saying if he's on the losing end, empty calorie. So I'm wondering how many times he's going to have to score 50 in a game, or he scores 30 during the actual regulation part of the game. But then maybe a couple of these games get out of hand, and then he ends up scoring 50 in the game. But like it doesn't matter because the team scored 80. I wonder if that's the situation. Like, yeah, he had a good performance, but was it like MVP leading? Whereas on the other side, you would have had a whole plethora of things. And I think after seeing Iguodala get a MVP in the finals for 7 plays potentially,
for holding LeBron to 33, 10, and 8 because he held him to that. You got a finals MVP.
Yeah. So I mean, after seeing that, I don't think there's a possibility they give the MVP to a losing team just because I think the fan vote still applies. But I would say if it was the old voting system, yes, I do think there's an absolute opportunity that you could see Jokic. I could even say this on the flip side, if the Heat lose and Jimmy has a fantastic series, I could say Jimmy could also be in the case for it as a losing player. But I do think this is the one finals we have that we could potentially see. If it's ever going to happen, it might be this one. But I don't think it's going to happen with the actual voting methods.
Exactly, and it's more of a testament to how good the Heat are as a well-rounded unit, where there is nobody there's a chance it could be almost like those 2014 Spurs where Kawhi Leonard got it averaging 17 points a game because everybody ate so much you couldn't give it to anybody. Or maybe it was 20.
Yeah, it's like you had the most average consistency of all the players. All right, you get the trophy. Like, congratulations.
You held LeBron to 59% from the field. You can have it because you chased him around a lot. Like, it's kind of crazy when you think about how that goes. So I agree with you. I don't think it will happen, but it's going to happen if Jokic has like what he did in game 2 and does that the rest of the way. But unfortunately, the Heat end up winning. For him, unfortunately, the Heat end up winning. Then it gets really interesting. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But I kind of agree with you. I'll be hard-pressed to see them give it to a losing player. Plus, because the losing player doesn't want that. He's going to be like, what?
Yeah, I was going to say, he's guaranteed he's throwing that trophy as soon as he's given it. It's like it's going to be thrown out somewhere, like in the middle of the stand somewhere. But
it would be fitting considering the Heat, their entire playoff run had been betted against most of the way. So it would be pretty fitting as well, too. Like I remember before the Celtics series, ESPN gave them it was a 97% chance for the Celtics to win, 3% for the Heat or whatever it was, through like 3 games. It was something ridiculous. So it would be on par for the course with how this postseason's gone for them. But
could you imagine the Mike Malone storyline though? Like the amount of things Mike Malone would say after that series, if as a losing team they still had the best player. He could come up with whatever storyline at that point in time, and everybody just be kind of like, shut up, Mike. You have the MVP from the series. You just couldn't win. It wasn't a good enough job from you coaching, but you have the MVP from the series.
Knowing him, he'd find a way to talk about the Lakers again, because that's what he's been up to pretty much since that series. But anyway, there's a lot to keep out for. We definitely look forward to catching up with Game 3 of the NBA Finals and the rest of the series as well. But I was going to do it for the tip-off, and that is going to take us now to the second favorite part of every show. That is the main event. And for the main event, we're going to go and step off the hardwood, and we're going to go to the gridiron. And yes, we're talking a little bit of football here in June because there's quite a bit coming in this offseason. It's coming in hot right now as well too, from the slot machines to the streets to the video games and a little bit of everything in between. And we're going to I think we should start with the big one here as well too. And we're going to look at Isaiah Rodgers right now as well too, involved in a sports betting situation as well, where not only is he betting on sports, he tried to work the system allegedly by like using a phone not registered him and all that. But there's also rumors that he bet on Colts games that he participated in as well too. There's still a lot of investigating to be done, but it is based on his Twitter post online, is what he posted as well as everything we've seen. Looks like he's the guy got busted for sports betting, and we both know he's going to get suspended. We won't even we'll get to that in a little bit. But what's your initial reaction when you look at this? Like another guy busted for sports betting. That's like 7 this offseason now and counting.
Yeah, I do believe it's 7 this offseason exactly. And yeah, I so there's so many caveats to the rule. Like for Jameson Williams, for example, it's come out that he bet on a college football game in another state that he was not staying at a team hotel in. Because it wasn't at a team hotel, it was considered illegal. So it's like, how many players do you think actually know that rule in the NFL? There's nearly, 500 of them every season? So give or take 7 total? And those would be probably the guys in the NFLPA rules committee. There's so few amount of people that would know something like that. But whereas Isaiah Rodgers, if it's to be believed that he bet on games that he was actually involved in, you got to know, dude. Like you got to know at the end of the day that that's not a smart idea. I don't know, man. It's just, it's weird to me that it would be the case. I'm hoping maybe somebody got a hold of his phone and they did the betting from his phone. That's the case.
They've rumored like 50 to 100 different bets, so that'd be a lot of action.
Yeah, this is a situation where you have the Pete Rose thing, obviously, where he never actually bet on a game he played in. You have the old Black Sox, which is the Red Sox or the White Sox team that actually did bet on games they were involved in, including potentially shaving points. And you see how they're remembered as the Black Sox now. Pete Rose, who never bet on his own game, however, was actually never even bet on baseball, would literally bet on every other sport, but completely banned from MLB Hall of Fame because of that. Like, how bad will Isaiah Rodgers be penalized in this? And that's what worries me when I first hear that. Is like, you bet on your own games? Oh, you're done. Like, done. And I don't mean like a little bit done, like done for a season. I mean done. Like, sports done. A football career done. Shane Falco on a boat type of done.
I'll say especially if he bet on like the Colts to lose or something like that, and then you look at some of the plays, like was those potentially shaving points, that sort of thing. Obviously, that was a bad team; they weren't winning a lot of games, so it would not be smart to bet on the win in the first place. But there's a lot of things to look at in that are. If he did something like that, he's done. Let's say there's like he bet on the Colts to win. I guess that I don't know how they punt. It's obviously in that case it might be like he's still getting a year or 2 years. It just depends on the severity, I guess. But like if he bet in negative ways against his own team, he's. Shane Falco get on the ball.
Anything to do with special teams or defensive scores or defensive giving up points or whatever, anything to do with the defense or the special teams, I think that's bad. That's like the ultimate oh no. But if it's just on like offensive scoring players like Mo Alley Cox, any one of the offensive players,
yards or something like that,
any one of those offensive parlay type of bets, then I'm okay with it a little bit more. Like. I'm like, okay, well, at least you didn't bet on your side, like things that you could actually be directly involved in. Again, I don't know when I say I'm okay with it more, I'm still like, dude, you should have known better. But like 5% of me is like, well, okay. I like whatever. But the other part, like, no, you still 95% of me is still like, dude, come on, this should have never been an issue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And on top of that too, the point spread, anything like that, no matter what, it was wrong. I mean, you know the rule. I know the rules are a little bit shaky, but you're betting on NFL. That's already a no-go in the first place.
Yeah.
B, they can pinpoint you. Every sports betting app points you out on a giant map dot to make sure you're legal. Like, you're not tricking anybody. Like,
you have to provide your legal information for the tax purposes. They literally provide you with a tax document, people. Come on. Like, and then that does beg the question. If he did try to sneak the rules and try to use somebody else's phone, who ratted on him? Like... Why did you rat like how much money did he lose for you to rat on him like that?
And on top of that, it's like you're willing to risk your career where you're set to make millions. You're a 25-year-old corner who's going to get paid coming up soon too. You must have been putting some wild parlays and hoping for some big payouts because you're not getting any money now. So hopefully you were winning some of that money because you're going to have to keep doing it now. You're going to have more time to do it. But it's a real disappointing situation. And I agree with you. Touching back on the rules thing, the rules are really stupid. It should be very simple. It's either don't bet on NFL games. Everything else, all right, we have leeway. B, don't bet, period. Just say they can't bet, period. It sucks, but like we're components of sports betting, both avid for better and for worse. But you got to make these clear and cut rules. You can't leave this weird gray area like at the facility, at the hotel, like this. It has to be very clear cut, dry.
I also say by partnering with betting apps, the NFL has done this to themselves because they've opened the door. And it's not a front door. They've opened a side or back door or back window to these same apps making deals with the athletes in the NFL in the off season to promote baseball, to promote basketball, to promote soccer, to promote those type of special parlay bets, and it then like where it gets so grayed over in the line that then your players are in the off season, they'll be at OTAs making bets from a facility, and that's obviously not legal, as we found out with the Jameson Williams thing. So it's like there's a fine line there that the NFL really, I believe, crossed here by partnering with these betting apps. And don't get me wrong, I'm again all for smart betting, but don't go crazy on this. But like, I think you kind of set this one up for your own players to be damned, if you will. Like there's no win situation for some of your players unless they just don't bet at all, and then they don't get the benefits of some of these other guys who get these advertisement deals. So it's like, and these are lucrative. Like, let's not kid ourselves. These are lucrative advertising deals from a lot of betting companies. They are really much pushing their apps very heavily. Like, this is a lot of money to be paid to athletes. Some of these guys will make more money from one advertisement with one of these betting apps than they would from a whole season of playing potentially. So, yeah, it's a tough situation to think about. Like all around, it's just you just kind of hope that right here is not a situation where he just was just like, I'm going to bet on my own team type of thing. Like that, you just hope that's.
Exactly. I think if I was to make the rules, obviously, and I'm not the expert, I don't know everything that goes into it. I feel like the simple cut and dry way to do it would be they can pinpoint where you're doing it. People are still going to probably try and break the rules and they're going to get the hammer thrown at them. But to eliminate the weirdness, like guys, in this case, Isaiah Rodgers is still getting got. Like get him. If you bet on the Colts, especially to lose or something he could directly impact, his career is done. If you bet on the Colts to win or maybe something like that, or bet on like JT over 10 carries because you knew that even then sketchy because you know the game plan. Like it's sketchy, but it's a little bit less.
It is a little sketchy in those situations.
Like maybe you go with like a 3-year ban there or something. I don't know. If he didn't have anything to do with the Colts, then maybe you give him the Calvin Ridley treatment, or maybe you give him 2 years to lay down a thicker hammer. But what I think they should do with the sports betting rule is NFL players cannot bet on NFL games and they can't bet on college football games because you don't know what ties they might have back there, that sort of thing too. Everything else, fair game. They'll pinpoint you, all that sort of thing. If you break that rule, you get caught. You get got. And whatever at that point too. But I feel like that's the only way you can, with everything you mentioned before, how they keep setting it up. At this point, it feels like that's the closest thing we're gonna get to a middle ground without being ridiculous.
And let's not. Well, I mean, the NFL has enough power; they could literally tell DraftKings or whatever company it is to be like, "Hey, our players are exclusively going to go through you. I need you to shut off all possible bets for the team they play for, and any of the league that they play in, and their college that they're from." And that's just that simple. Like you literally just have a blockade on each. Like so, Jameson Williams, he can't bet on Ohio State, can't bet on Alabama, can't bet on the NFL. That easy. Like okay, done.
Some of these guys that transfer a lot are going to have a whole lot of X's.
Yeah. Will Levis will have a nice long list there.
Yeah, some of those guys like Sean Clifford and even there's going to be a long list for a few of those guys.
Yeah. So, but no, I do think there's got to be a way around it. There's got to be a way to figure it out. Make it easy. Keep it simple, stupid.
There's a way to do it, and it's a learning experience. In this case for Isaiah Rodgers, it's not so much a learning experience. This was a dumb decision. Even if sports betting was completely legal, you don't bet on your own team that you're participating in. Even if they said you could bet on NFL games, the rule would always be don't bet on your own team. Like that part's. It feels like no duh. Have somebody else do the bet for you. Tell them, hey, JT's getting the ball this week. Bet his 100-yard over. Like tell somebody else to do that for you. Don't do it yourself. They pin you on your phone. There's a sports book in your stadium. Like if they're tracking you, they're gonna see that you're 10 feet away and be like, well, gee, I wonder what's going on here. And what do you know? It's registered to an Rodgers. Gee, I wonder who that is. Like just a doy moment. Just so much doy to it. But we can go on and on about this all day. We won't go too much on, but Isaiah Rodgers, depending on what comes out with the betting investigation, could be done, could be done for a while. We'll wait and see what comes out of that as well. We're going to kind of pivot to a little more harder spot here. And Greg Newsome, Perrion Winfrey, and I believe Demetric Felton and possibly some other Browns robbed at gunpoint all in a very short amount of time, just the last few days as well. The cars, jewelry, things like that being taken. rumors are it might have been even targeted, like people were actually looking for them, that sort of thing as well. And talk about a scary situation if you're Greg Newsome and those guys too. These are young kids that we talk about too. That's a little concerning to see that NFL players are being targeted. And if I'm the Browns, there's only one logical explanation here, or one logical solution. Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the state of Ohio. So you go get Marvin Harrison Sr. and make him your head of security, because we know damn well nothing's getting through him. Based on his past transgressions, we know no one's messing with him if he has a baseball bat. But in all seriousness, this is a little worrisome, no pun intended, to see what's going on with the Browns players being targeted. And frankly, I'm kind of worried if it's going to continue or what's next, or if these were just guys in a bad situation. I don't know what to make of this, but it is a little worrisome.
Yeah, I mean, the story goes that they were leaving a club at 3 a.m., 3:30.
Nothing good happens
the two
after 12 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, 3:30 a.m. on a Monday, so Sunday going into Monday night, and 6 masked men, 6 of them, proceeded to rob them at gunpoint. They got all the jewelry they were wearing, plus the truck plus Greg Newsome's truck, and then on top of that, they got Demetric Felton's car at 4:50 on Sunday morning, so 24 hours before Greg Newsome's car was taken, and that just makes the second time. There's a third incident that Deshaun Watson's car was stolen out of a parking lot in North Olmsted earlier this year. So there has been multiple incidences now where multiple Browns players have had things taken. And look, Cleveland is a great place at times, but then at other times you got to know where you live. It's not just called the mistake on the lake for no reason. It is a serious thing that there are some people up here that just don't know when to say no. And they will take a gun to you. And it's just how it is. Be smart about it. But yeah, if your players, this one kind of goes a little bit back to the betting for me. Yes, you should be able to do things that normal 20-year-olds are able to do. But you also have to realize you're a multi-million-dollar athlete who has been seen on the big screen of multiple different athletic events in the Cleveland area. Your face is literally in a 700 by 60 foot banner that's strung across, Cleveland.
You are a public figure in a large part, especially in the area you live in.
And there's only so many clubs that stay open that late at night. Mm-hmm. So the limit, and let's be fair, the number of clubs that actual players actually attend here in Cleveland are even lower. So you have a very good chance of being recognized. You have a very good chance of being spotted. And if this is a case where it has been pinpointed, which if I had to guess, I'd say probably the situation. It doesn't happen 3 times. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me a third time, though. What is that? That's a setup. So hopefully most players start to stick together. They don't stay out that late. They don't do things like that. Maybe they go to Pittsburgh to have their nights out. I mean, maybe go to Detroit. Take your pick, but you can't do it here. You can't do it in Cleveland. That's just not a smart place to do it, and especially when it's so limited, the situation. You got to be a little smarter than that. Know your role type of, and I don't mean that in the mean way. I mean your role as a public figure, your role as a multi-million-dollar athlete. You're gonna be spotted. People are gonna take one snapshot of you, and it's gonna pop up on that Snapchat filter that we all know and we all hate it. That little map thing, the little heat map, and it's gonna pop up that you were there. Well, guess what? Guess who's gonna be called? Somebody, and that unfortunately that person had a gun this time. You hope it's not a situation that continues to occur, but at the same time, let's be on the safe side here, guys, and maybe let's avoid any of these situations. And I'm not condemning any of the actions of the players. They all did the right thing by not fighting what was happening, by just letting it happen. That's the safest thing you can do in those situations. I'm glad everybody got out uninjured, but at the same time, maybe just don't go out that late. Maybe leave at midnight. When everybody else leaves the club at midnight, leave the club at midnight. Don't leave at 3:30.
You can get public security, or I don't know if they had it, and if you can get a driver or something. It's obviously hindsight.
So the NFL does offer rides home for players.
Yeah. Don't know if that make a difference here, because what's the driver going to do, but at the same time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't have their truck at least, so that wouldn't be stolen. But then, would it have been stolen at their house? You don't know.
Exactly. There's a lot to be worried, and hopefully it's not something that continues to go as well too. But we're going to now pivot to we're going to go to a little bit more upbeat football story with some questions and some rumor mills. We're going to go to DeAndre Hopkins, out and about right now, been released by the Cardinals, out there for a little bit of time, having a meeting with the Titans today, which is kind of interesting. He's looking for a contender, a team with a great quarterback, and a chance to get paid. Titans can't really give you any of those 3 things, so that's kind of interesting there. And First thought is, what do you think about him going to the Titans? And two, where do you think we see where could be the next landing spot for D-Hop?
I laughed when I saw the whole report about him going for the meeting with the Titans. Way too hard, because it's just like, you want a good quarterback, you want to have a chance at the playoffs, but you went to visit the Titans. They don't know who their quarterback is, my guy. They literally might be releasing a guy they drafted last year. I mean, I guess they know Tannehill is going to be their quarterback, but is Tannehill a really good quarterback?
How long?
Let's ruminate on that one for a moment. But yeah, no, if you're D-Hop, I don't like the Titans being your fit. So no, I don't like the meeting with the Titans, but you know what? So be it. Sure. Anyways, where I actually see him falling, obviously we talked a lot about these big market teams. You have the Bills, you have the Chiefs, you have all these big names. There's a couple places that actually have popped up in my mind lately that I think would be sneaky good places, and I'm not going to go with the obvious ones. I'm going to say New England would be a sneaky good place for him to land. Obviously, they need a wide receiver in that room, a veteran wide receiver in that room that can really show the young kids how to do it, especially when you have a guy like Boutte in there who has all the talent in the world, but off-field issues. You get D-Hop in there who really, in his career, you can honestly say has not had any major off-field issues. Has been a fantastic clubhouse guy for his team. So you look at that, maybe that might be a perfect fit for Bill Belichick in that offense. I also say, as silly as it sounds, considering they just lost a quarterback, but that division is so wide open, I honestly say going to Green Bay is a possibility as well. They do have money. They do need a big name receiver for Jordan Love. Young kid has, if you like to believe the talent of or the words of Romeo Dobbs, he has all the same arm talent as Aaron Rodgers. So we'll have to, I don't know about that, but that's a possibility there. I'd also say staying in that division, really the Bears are still kind of a favorite for me. I do love the Bears option, just considering you have a young, talented quarterback. You probably have one of the better setups just to slide D-Hop in and see what happens. Then you have D-Hop and DJ Moore. That could be, I mean, I've used that duo on Madden before, and I can tell you it is a fantastic duo.
Absolutely, as well, too. And I have a few other ones as well. For me, the obvious one would be the Ravens. I know they're one of the big ones just because Houston Texans, that's a weirdly interesting fit as well, too. CJ Stroud, and then we
need a quality quarterback there first.
Touche. Well, we'll see what CJ Stroud or Davis Mills, depending on who starts. We'll see how that one plays out. But the Ravens are a good one for me, I think. We still got to see about Odell's health. We got to see how he bounces back, how healthy he is. Rashad Bateman, kind of the same thing. How healthy is he? Zay Flowers, I think, is an incredible rookie, but he's still a rookie. Getting Diop as that big, clear outside threat. Just basically give Lamar every weapon he's ever wanted. Make up for lost time. You're paying him back with interest at this point. I think that's a good one. Some sneaky fun ones as well, too. Reports are he has actually been taking over and dominating right now. So I believe that. I believe it. Week 2 at the latest is when I think we see CJ Stroud starting. I think by week 2, he'll be the starter. I think it's going to be pretty quick. He's going to take over. But anyway, before we go off on a random tangent here, because we can go on all day. I do think an underrated one for me, which I think could be a weirdly good fit, is maybe the Rams. You already have Cooper Kupp, so that's going to take some of this steam off of you. You have Sean McVay, a very player-friendly coach. You know you're going to get a lot of options in that offense. We're assuming Matthew Stafford, when he can stay healthy, is a very, very good quarterback. So let's say he can stay healthy. Maybe something like that as well, too. That could be a good one. You factor in them getting the run game going, things like that. So we're going to throw that as an option. I do think there's rumors with the Browns. We'll see how that one plays out. I think their receiving room is pretty good right now. We'll have to wait and see. But there's a lot of really interesting options there. The other one I kind of want to throw out there, and it doesn't really fit what he's looking for, but I don't hate the Panthers either. Give him a chance to go with Bryce Young, that young quarterback. Frank Reich, a really good coach. A terrible division, so you could very easily flip around and be a playoff team with them. You get that big number 1 outside receiver. Does he want that? We'll see. It sounds like it's the contenders he's looking for. Maybe he wants to go with the Chargers, the Bills, someone like that. So if he's not able to get those, maybe he pivots and takes a high upside reward thing. But for me, the best fit is Baltimore. All the weapons you could want for it. If somebody goes down, which injuries have plagued Baltimore so badly the last 2 years. Odell, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers is a rookie we got to see. If Mark Andrews goes down, that's your number 1 target still. Like, this just gives you a plethora of options, and it probably will help Lamar a little bit because he'll be able to just 1, 2, 3, ball's gone. Like, he doesn't have to 1, 2, 3 make a play as often. So I think it'll just, or you'll see one-on-one with Diop and be like, you know what? Catch, snap, look at the safety, back shoulder fake. Diop may not be able to outrun anybody like he used to, but you put the ball in his vicinity, those baseball mitts for hands are still going to come down with it in a one-on-one, get good body positioning sort of way. And Lamar can still throw a good back shoulder ball. So that's still my best fit, even though it's a more obvious one. But I do think there are some other interesting good places, and I really do I do like New England as well.
I will say, I mean, yeah, while Baltimore might be considered obvious, a lot of people are going to overlook it because of the Odell signing, because they still have Rashad Bateman as well. But I also want to point out that would be the first time in his career he's had a big body outside receiver who is actually a quality big body outside receiver, not a young guy, not a project type of guy. That would be the first time in his career he actually had a quality outside receiver to throw to, and that'd be interesting to see because that's one of his best talents of throwing to Mark Andrews. And when Mark Andrews is out wide, is because Mark Andrews has that big body. Let's see what he can do with D-Hop in that situation. Like those size 12 mitts are no joke. I mean, he literally can bring down a lot of things. And you're right, he won't outrun anybody, but that would be very interesting. I do want to point out, neither one of us said the Chiefs. Do we think that's just maybe a pipe dream for Chiefs fans because they have so much already, like it doesn't make sense financially for them? Or do you think that there's actually some sliver of possibility that he ends up in Kansas City?
For me, it's a weird combination of too obvious because it feels like they have a whole receiver, but at the same time, they got a lot of young guys too that they probably want to get snaps for that they like. I mean, Sky Moore, limited action last year between injuries and other things, but still had his moments. Kadarius Toney, when he was on the field, very good. Justin Ross, who, by the way, fantasy football guys, grab Justin Ross. Just throwing that out there as well too. They also, little did I know, they added John Ross too. So they have both of those guys there. I think they have a weirdly good receiving core considering their number one target is still number 87. And because of the tight end position, he just owns that middle of the field so effectively. It's going to give those outside guys more space to work in when you have Patrick Mahomes. That's sometimes all you need. It's like Tom Brady with Gronkowski. Those other receivers, whether it was Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, you had a lot more wiggle room, even when there's Brandon Cooks. So I think it's very obvious, but at the same time, the cap space, as well as I don't think that's really what they're looking for right now. Maybe if somehow D-Hop was still there week 3 and the Chiefs are somehow 1-2 or something, like somehow the young guys just aren't getting it done or whatever, then maybe. But as of right now, I think the Chiefs are feeling cool. You're coming off a Super Bowl where you started 6 rookies and you have all these young players. So I think they're probably just chilling like, you know what? How much does it really help us? So I like it, but at the same time, I get why not.
Yeah, I definitely feel along the same lines. I feel like it just doesn't make sense for them. Like it doesn't, like this point in time. Now, I do think as it gets closer to like the actual start of like fall practicing, I do think once it gets to fall camp that might be the situation where if they can get him for a steal, maybe $5 to $8 million for a year, just some ridiculous steal. It's like, okay, yeah, we'll take D-Hop on our already overpowered offense. Like, thank you, come again, bye. Like I honestly don't know what else to say with that. It's just like, yes, they would happily take him in that situation, but I think that's literally the only time they're gonna like actually try to break the bank and sign D-Hop.
Absolutely. Jacksonville could be another fun one just to give Trevor Lawrence all those weapons in a terrible division. But the one a lot of people are held up on are the Bills, and the Bills I don't like quite as much. You have Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. You brought in Dalton Kincaid to go with Dawson Knox. I feel like that 1-2, the 12 personnel is what they should be looking at more this year. It'll help with Josh Allen's red zone issues with throwing the ball in a harm's way too much. It'll help with your running game, not just Josh Allen taking off and being Josh Allen. I think it will bringing D-Hop's you're going to go spread a lot more often. I think what they need is a slot receiver, like what they had with a Cole Beasley or when they had Isaiah McKenzie, just something like that for when they do go to that personnel. They don't split out Knox or something like that. So I want to see them go the opposite of throwing in receivers. I want them to throw in the big guys, the tight ends, the linemen, things like that. That'll help the Bills. Not because receivers, they're just going to basically stay right here. Receivers, it's going to make you better, I guess. And maybe you get like a little, but like bringing in linemen into the Dalton Kincaid, it's solving your issues. Where I made the joke on the corner booth last week, throwing D-Hop on the Bills is like killing a spider with a Range Rover. Like, sure, it'll still get the job done, but it's a little bit overkill and unnecessary at that point. So it works, but I don't know. But there's a reason I mentioned the Bills because that's going to transition us into our next one very ever so not smoothly since I brought it up. We're looking at the Madden 24 cover. Officially, it looks like it is going to be Superman Josh Allen himself, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the game, gracing the cover, which the Madden curse was a thing for about 10 to 15 years, but it's kind of been shattered the last few years, minus Antonio Brown and the fact that just that fiasco that went on there as well, too.
But now, I will say the next season after Antonio Brown was on the cover, he did not have a bad season. It was just after that.
Because the next season is when he went to the Raiders and then the Patriots. Like, he had that back.
Was it? I thought it was the year after.
It might have been. It was It might have been either way. My point is, like, after that one, it went downhill. And the fact that had frostbite was who made the game, and the thing with his feet, like, that just makes it even more perfect. But
yeah,
anyway, either way. But between Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, and some of those guys, they've recently kind of debunked a little bit of the Madden curse, just at least to a little bit. Even Lamar coming off the MVP season did not have a bad next season either. So at this point, do you like Josh Allen on the cover? Do you hate it? Do you think it's a good move? What are we thinking with Josh Allen on the cover?
I hate it, but for none of the reasons that everybody else hates it. I hate it because this man continues to win in the offseason. First of all, he's supposedly dating Haley Steinfeld, which shout out to him. But now he gets the Madden cover and doesn't have to worry about the cover curse.
Well,
the best of both worlds here. Like, you get the cover, you don't have to worry about the cover curse, and you might potentially sign D-Hop. Just to top everything all off. And by the way, you were covering corners in practice, and you actually didn't look bad at it, or covering receivers in practice, and you didn't look terrible at it. I don't get that either. Josh Allen continues to win in the offseason, and that's why I hate it. But I actually know, as far as a Madden cover goes, I actually don't mind. I think it's fine. It makes sense. I think, do you want to see Patty on there for fourth time already? Third time already?
Fourth, yeah, because he had one by himself and then one with him and Tom. So I think this would be third. I agree with you. Can't do that.
Is that overkill? Can that be a thing?
Yes.
Maybe, unless now if you would have taken a different route and gone Travis Kelce, or alternatively the whole Kelce family, Travis, Jason, and me, that would be great.
Hold on, let me retract that clap I gave you a little bit earlier. I might have went too fast. I thought you were going to say Donna Kelce on there as well, but
Donna can be the matriarch, kind of holding us together.
All three of you like should have those two with the hands, and you just dangling by like the unwanted stepchild.
I'll be holding onto the shoelaces of both of them. Like, I do think that would have been kind of cool to have the Kelce brothers plus his mom, because that was such a big storyline last year, and I think that's what Madden kind of tends to do, is stick with the storylines from last season. But Josh Allen obviously being a big storyline, and that's nothing against that, but I don't hate it. It's for a single player. I think it's fine. I mean, to be honest, at this point, I don't really care who's on the cover anymore. I'm just like, oh, that's cool for you guys. Hopefully you don't break your leg like Vic.
Hopefully your game doesn't stink too, and it makes sense. And too, I mean, like if we wanted to be, and if I'm not mistaken, the players have to okay being on the cover as well too. Like their likeness is already sold in, but I think there is like an agreement to be on the cover. So they asked him to say cool. The other options, Jalen Hurts obviously would have been a good choice as well. Trevor Lawrence, like there were other good options, but I have no problems with this either. It's kind of cool, good for him.
Well, hold on now. So the rumor is, because I'm glad you brought up Jalen Hurts before you go any further. The rumor is that on the NCAA cover will potentially be either Trevor Lawrence or Jalen Hurts. So
I don't like that, considering Caleb Williams is sitting right there for you, an actual NCAA player, and you can't.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna pay the players already, like for the game, might as well put a college athlete, but like kind of continuing their trend of using players after they get out of the college game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, by the time
that's
that
why the
comes out,
rumor
would
is
be after Caleb Williams is drafted technically, because it's coming out next year. So
2024.
Yeah, like Caleb Williams.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it would be after the season. Yeah.
But either way, like I agree that works too. Like there's a lot of options. Either way, good for Josh Allen. Now we just need the Bills to, not kind of flame out a little bit as well. So we need them to stay strong, and Josh Allen quit turning the ball over in the red zone. You're incredible everywhere else, but last year those red zone turnovers were terrible. And then get used to playing in the snow, because some guys like Isaiah McKenzie were saying that's no game they would have won if it wasn't snowing in Cincinnati. And, well, you play in Buffalo, you don't get that excuse. That is unacceptable.
Yeah,
so
no.
Be ready for the snow. Get cooking. Like you've been a favorite the last 2 years. Maybe the Madden cover is just what that doctor ordered, and that's ass backwards from what it's been the last 15 years or so. But we'll definitely keep an eye on that. But that'll do it here for our main event. That's going to lead us now to Kelsey's favorite part of every show, and that is Crunch Time. And Crunch Time, of course, brought to you by our good friends over at Outlier. Go to outlier.bet /HighLowSports. Speaking of sports betting we talked about earlier, Outlier will help you bet smarter, not harder, and get back some of that hard-earned money you're willing to put in as well too, following all the different trends as well. And Kelcey, you got something interesting. We had a big story here in the world of sports, and this one you're kind of ready to take away here is the PGA absorbing LIV Golf as well as the DP World Tour as well. Yeah, so it's very interesting that, really the DP World Tour to me, that's kind of secondary to everything else here. LIV Golf, you talk about recouping the money you lost. PGA Tour here going now. If you guys don't know the whole story, PGA Tour is absorbing DP Tour and LIV Golf. With that comes the caveat that the PGA Golf name will remain a 501c, which means a nonprofit organization, as an organizing body for this unnamed new tour, what they're making now with all the guys from LIV Golf, all the guys from the PGA Tour, and all the DP World Tour people as well. I don't know what's about to happen, but
something crazy is about to happen because there's been fights between Rory and all the LIV Golf guys. There's been fights between Phil Mickelson and all the PGA Tour guys, so much so that at the Masters, there were dudes sitting there saying that Phil was eating by himself at a table far away from everybody else. There were a couple other LIV Golf guys that were just by themselves in corners, not really communicating with any of the guys they used to communicate with in the PGA Tour. Somebody supposedly flipped somebody else off at the driving range during the Masters. At this point, I don't know what to think with this, with LIV Golf being absorbed by the PGA. But all I know is it's about to make a whole lot of fun for next season's golf tournaments, and it's going to make a whole lot of money coming in too, because evidently most of the investors are remaining going forward. So this new tournament, whatever the new series they're coming out with, whatever it's going to be called, is going to be a high money type of series. So be very interesting to see. They're going to still continue to play the Masters, still continue to play the Open, things like that, but they are going to have a much higher purse in a lot of these events. And that is what exactly every PGA Tour player wants to hear.
What's really interesting too is technically there is still litigation going on between the parties as well too. The player, like the LIV sued the PGA Tour, and the PGA Tour countersued after the PGA basically the ones who had to join LIV were forced to resign. So it's countersuit litigation, technically still continuing. Rumor is this deal will put an end to that as well too. Like that's part of the deal is getting rid of that. But there's a lot of, I don't even want to say backlash because that makes it sound like, you know what I mean? Like there's just a lot of questions, I guess is how we'll word it as well.
There's a lot of backlash because you got a whole, so, okay.
Questions, backlash, concerns, qualms, trepidations. There's a lot of adjectives here.
Like, so if you look at Twitter, especially golf Twitter lately, it's very entertaining because a lot of people that were in the pro PGA Tour corner are now saying that the PGA Tour is a sellout. It's, basically it has left its players out to dry, as they had said all these negative things. They had completely banned LIV players at one point in time before the season started, and then when too many started bailing out for the LIV Golf tournament, then they were like, oh, we'll make exceptions for certain tournaments. You had the LIV Golf guys who were literally living up life without all these strict rules of the PGA Tour. If you guys don't know, PGA Tour, it's a golf game, a gentleman's game, if you will. It still has a lot of the old school gentleman rules that are frustrating as all get out for any person born in the 21st century. So, you have these guys actually finally wearing shorts, wearing fun color T-shirts, polos, getting to use cool colored shoes, having a team aspect to it. That was a really cool thing about LIV Golf. You wonder if that's going to continue over into the PGA. And it wasn't boring like the Ryder Cup. Like, I'm sorry, at this point in time, I don't care who goes to the Ryder Cup. It's all boring to me. At this point, you play skins games. You don't even play actually like strokes. So it's just all frustrating. But it'll be interesting to see how it happens next year, how they can take what LIV Golf was revolutionizing and turn it and adapt it into what the PGA already brings. I'm interested to see how that goes.
And for those of you that aren't quite as, like on paper, from what we've already discussed, it sounds like, hey, this should be good and great. What's the problem? Well, some of the backlash comes from critics of LIV Golf are kind of saying that it was an attempt by the Saudi government to distract attention from human rights records, that sort of thing as well, to a lot of questionable areas going with that. Then they, of course, LIV supporters said the PGA was a monopoly, used strong arm tactics, protecting its big time position, like yelling, he did this, he did that. Like there's a lot of back and forth with that as well, too. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. So that's part of the reason there's basically both sides are pissed. That's how this one kind of turned out with the uproar there. So something we'll keep an eye on for, and good for the golfers because they're probably going to get a whole lot of money from that. There's a whole lot of money coming in.
Yeah, no, it'll be very interesting to see. So, but moving on.
Yeah, absolutely.
DJ?
We're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to stay in crunch time here. We're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to go a little off the cuff, if you will, as well, too. And there's been a lot of talk about Mark Zuckerberg. We all know Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook/Meta, all of that fun. He competes in jiu-jitsu for fun, like on the side. That's one of his hobbies as well, too. He's been doing it for a while. Well, he's actually competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments, and the rumor that's come out recently is that he was actually choked unconscious. Like he went unconscious and was snoring is what they're saying. To which I say, A, if that's the case, like we can make fun of Mark Zuckerberg for a lot of reasons. We could tease him, go back and forth, etc. That's not really necessarily one of them. People do that. That happens in jiu-jitsu all the time. That actually almost makes him look more gangster because instead of tapping, he went out the hard way, or he kept fighting until basically ran out of oxygen. That's kind of gangster in the fight world if he did that, for one. For two, everyone gets beat up in jiu-jitsu. Everybody gets choked around and gets their arms pulled in leagues. Like anyone who's participating, they know you don't win every time. You get your butt whooped, especially when they have the gis like he practices in. Because all it takes is one random twist to the collar and you're suddenly gasping for air. There's a lot that goes into that. So the people making fun of him for that, they can just chill. For those of you, if you want to make fun of him for a lot of reasons, there's like 9,999 other ones you can. But that's where we probably should draw the line, is him competing in a sport like that and more or less making fun of him for allegedly being choked out. Like, I don't know if it did happen or not. And of course, it is a representation saying that didn't happen, because no one wants to be the guy that got choked out. But those who are using that as a point to attack him, I dare them to slap on a gi and give it a try.
Yeah, that's just stupid. Like, come on, man. Let this guy have his moment. I'm glad you said he looks a little more G by actually going out the hard way, if you will. Because like that, when you first told me that, I was like, wait, what? Mark Zuckerberg was actually like in a fight and he got knocked and he got choked out. Like, timeout. That's not like getting cold-cocked by like Dallas Goedert in a bar in South Dakota. Like, that is actually pretty dope. Like, I'm not gonna make fun of you for that. That's like good on you, kid. But yeah, I feel like in any sport, like, everybody loses once, at least once. Like, you're never undefeated. Nobody's gonna be Floyd Mayweather, and even Floyd Mayweather isn't undefeated. If you know, you know, because Floyd Mayweather Sr. made sure his son was defeated in an amateur boxing match by himself. That doesn't count for his professional record.
Times too, plus the Olympics, plus in the gym, you get beat up all the time. Like, nobody's undefeated in the gym. That never happens. Otherwise, you got a real crappy gym. No one goes truly undefeated like that. And jiu-jitsu is the same way. At best, he's a rookie at it. I mean, it's not like he's been doing this for 30 years. Like, it's a hobby for him, and he actually had the cojones to step up and do this. So for everything else we can make fun of Mark Zuckerberg for, this one should stay off the table as well too, until someone else wants to slap on a gi and jump in there and try it themselves. Let's see. And by the way, you're not allowed to tap out if you do, because you're making fun of him for snoring. So if you get caught in a choke, you get to snore too.
Hey, I snore every night, so you know what? More respect to Mark Zuckerberg for snoring.
You don't have to tell anybody.
By at least being knocked out. Yeah, by at least being knocked out like a man and then start snoring. At least, he didn't just zonk out like a normal person and start snoring.
Absolutely, as well too. Like, it's definitely can't make fun of him for that as well too. And we talked a lot about today, and I'm going to go ahead and round this out here really quickly. I just have a few quick words to say. We're always fun and games here. We have a good time, everything like that as well too. We joke, we kid, we very sarcastic, very snarky. But I do want to just take a moment to anybody who's out there listening as well too. Take the time in your life, the ones you care about, the ones you love, talk to them, listen to them, understand their feelings, figure out what they need. You never know when your last hug, your last handshake, your last anything with someone could be their last as well too. For one reason or another, always spend time with them, understand what they need, and treat them the way they deserve to be treated. It's hard to ask for forgiveness. It's always easier to do it early on than to do it later. So there's a lot you can do there. So just always treat the ones you love, treat them right as well too. You never want to look back on things with regret. Just always be sure to talk to them. Make sure to know how they're feeling. Go out of your way to make sure that they're okay. I just wanted to get that one out there for everybody as well too. Just want to take a nice somber moment for us.
It's important words right now. I know everybody's going through a lot, and you never know what everybody else is going through. So DJ, I wholeheartedly agree with you. So DJ, normally you're the one that rounds us out, but I'll let you have a moment for yourself here. After that is strong words there. So, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it as always for you guys tuning in. And until next time, we will see you guys.